Hey everybody! For those of you who couldn't make it to Audrey's celebration of life, or those of you who just wanted to hear my speech again, I'm sharing it with you today in this video. I want to share with you all what Audrey taught me. Audrey was unapologetically herself. She loved to be weird and expressive without hesitation, and that often resulted in me feeling embarrassed in my teen years. When Audrey moved home to Chilliwack from Kamloops, she became my tag-along until she formed her own group of friends. I was happy to have Audrey living back in the same house as me again, but I often wondered what she'd say or do next. It wasn't long until I became desensitized to her odd behavior. I eventually learned to relax a little and laugh and smile. In my adult years, I have fond memories of all the times Audrey made me laugh and smile. Audrey even told my kids she'd embarrass them as they got older on purpose. We laughed about that. Audrey adored her nieces and nephews very much. There were years when Braden was younger that it pulled at my heartstrings that Audrey wasn't around more. She was too busy wasting time with her ex for figuring out that deep down inside she was gay. I was so relieved when Audrey broke up with him and started hanging out with us more. Audrey would come over and watch Ellen on my PVR with me. We both loved to laugh and dance and joke around. Ellen's show brought us all of that. I think that show also helped Audrey come out of the closet. I've never had a problem with people being gay, but watching that show gave me so much compassion for everyone. Gay, transgendered, non-binary, etc. Audrey also placed no judgment on people for their differences. Whoever you were, she accepted you and loved you as you were. There wasn't many people Audrey didn't like, but if she didn't like you, watch out, you're in trouble. I remember a time when a female pushed me when I was pregnant. Audrey got so protective and her rage came out. There was many times Audrey was there for me, and I will never forget that. So often I felt like I was the older, more mature and even sister, and even though I was there to help her many times, she too had my back. There was many times Audrey drove me to work when Phil and I only had one vehicle, and many times Audrey came along with me and the kids to explore and enjoy events, and she would be my extra eyes and hands to watch over my kids. She also babysat a ton of times, and the kids always loved that. I'm super thankful Audrey was in my kids' life enough to form a bond and a lasting impression on both of them. Braden used to light up and really get excited to see his auntie. Audrey always called him Squishy Cheeks or Squish. So many times they'd be snuggling, and I'd be chopped liver to Braden because he had auntie. If you haven't had a Braden snuggle, you don't know what you're missing. I can say the same thing about Audrey's hugs. They were big, strong, and they usually resulted in her picking you up. I think she taught Braylon this because I see her do the very same thing to her friends. Audrey showed me so many sides of her. I watched her be her very strongest working at Western Form Rentals, where she flexed her pipes and gladly helped her friends move furniture, no problem. Her strength was amazing and her hardworking skills were impressive. I also saw Audrey at her weakest moments in life. I saw her lonely, sad, feeling cheated. I picked her up from the hospital after her suicide attempt at Western Form Rentals, and I saw her go through extreme heartache. I saw Audrey from time to time when she lived on the streets and she desperately needed a good rest, some food, safety, and the love of family. I gave her what I could, and I would drop everything when she called to go and get her and help her out. There were so many times I wished I was making Audrey's decisions for her because she struggled to make the right ones. Audrey struggled to advocate for herself. She struggled to put her wellness or needs before her wants. She struggled to manage her emotions, and towards the end of her life, she struggled to stay awake. Many of our last visits were Audrey falling asleep in the comfort and safety of my home or car. I was so worried about Audrey for the last few years. Every time I saw a shopping cart on the sidewalk, I desperately looked to see if it was her. Many times I drove up and down the streets looking for her just to know if she was okay. Every single day of my life, she was on my mind. I've probably spent more times worrying about my sister than I have worrying about my own children. My sister has taught me about mental illness and what it looks like to not take care of yourself. I learned all about anxiety, depression, rage, and just how fragile life is. The lessons Audrey has taught me were not easy ones, and because of that, I'm going to do everything in my power to practice proper self-care and be there to guide others into a journey of wellness. There are many tools and coping strategies and healing strategies people can use to get better in a tough moment or use as prevention so that there are fewer tough moments. I want to help people learn the strategies to be mentally and emotionally and physically well. One I'm going to share with you right now for stress or pain is This is temporary. It's not forever. This will end. Right now, we all may be feeling a little or a lot of pain in our hearts, and you can apply that quote to this very circumstance. Unfortunately, Audrey felt there would be no end to her struggles and her suffering, and so she decided to end it herself. Many people look at suicide with the idea that the person was being selfish when they did what they did. That thought doesn't serve anyone any good, so today I want you to replace that thought with, I am grateful that Audrey is no longer in pain and that she is or soon will be at peace. We can also be grateful for the times Audrey was a part of our lives, and that is why we called her passing a celebration of life. We can all celebrate the fact that Audrey was in our life, however much she was. Now that I've likely made you tear up a little, I'll see if I can make you smile. I have a couple memories of Audrey that I'll share in hopes of lifting your spirits. When Audrey and I lived in Kamloops, we always spent many hours at our neighbor's place. My best friend's mom, Dorothy, cooked a mean spaghetti, or at least Audrey thought so. It was late afternoon, and Dorothy offered us a late lunch we should have said no to, based on having to be home for a 5 o'clock dinner. Audrey was all over that spaghetti. In fact, she had 2 helpings. Audrey was a food lover, and that spaghetti delighted her taste buds. Before I tell you how dinner went, I must share my scare tradition. Each time we went home from next door, I would run ahead full speed and then get inside and hide behind the door. Audrey would arrive just after me and begin to open the door, and I'd jump out and yell boo. I scared the crap out of her, and the funniest part was I did it every single day, and yet she didn't come to predict this, or somehow I just managed to startle her each and every single time. It was funny every damn time. So we'd get home, wash up, and head to the dinner table. Mom at the time was dating this military strict guy named Wayne, and Wayne had some tight rules about utensil use, no elbows on the table, no slurping the beverages, and you must ask to be excused from the table. You better have a damn good reason to leave, too. This time, Audrey couldn't eat any pork chops at all because she was stuffed to the max with spaghetti. The few bites she took set her off, and in fear of bothering Wayne, she ended up vomiting all over the table and floor instead of excusing herself to the washroom. I can't think of pork chops or spaghetti without thinking about Audrey. I actually got turned off pork chops for quite a long time because of that. Eating and cooking brought Audrey joy. She would try anything. You could dare her, and she would not back down. I've seen her eat many jalapenos straight in one sitting. I've seen her handle all sorts of hot sauces, and even eat a live goldfish whole. Audrey must have learned to have such a diverse palate due to her childhood consequences. When we were young, Audrey liked to swear. Mom would threaten to put Tabasco sauce on her tongue, hopefully to deter her from swearing. Audrey didn't stop swearing. Instead, she grew a fondness for spicy foods. Unlike me, Audrey didn't need a recipe to make a creative meal. She'd experiment with spices and ingredients and discover many new flavors. She was also very expressive about how her food tasted, too. That wasn't the only expressiveness happening at the table. Our dad would sometimes take us out to a restaurant for a 2-hour-long dinner, and Audrey and I would get bored and sit there and make faces at each other and laugh. Audrey definitely brought the silly out of me. When we weren't laughing together, we were dancing together, and Audrey's moves were so unique. So many times, people observe others and sit there and place judgment on their ability to dance. And if you did that with Audrey, you might think she's got some funky moves. But I loved those funky moves. Audrey danced like nobody was watching, yet everyone would be watching because she was having so much fun. She made me less critical of how I appeared and welcomed out my inner child. Her and I could dance for hours, and although we had such different tastes in music, we also had an appreciation for many of the same artists. We loved Cher, Will Smith, Static X, Katy Perry, Sarah McLachlan, anything electronic or dance, and Elvis Presley. Audrey's love for Elvis goes deep. When we were kids, she'd curl her upper lip, shake, rock, and roll, and did an amazing Elvis impersonation. She was so good, kids at FG Larry School were offering her treats from their lunch in exchange for her impersonation. She was like a celebrity in that school. Audrey's creative talents don't stop there. She was also a pretty great artist, drawing some unique designs. She used to think of going to Emily Carr School. I wonder if Audrey had followed a career in art or cooking, if that could have brought her more joy. I won't know what in her life could have made things easier, but I do know our lives need joy. I've always been a dreamer, and I'm going to keep chasing my dreams and my joys. I hope in seeing how life can be so short that we can be inspired to do more of what makes us happy, even if others think it's weird. Be you authentically, just as Audrey did, and place no judgment on others as they be them. Love, dance, sing, and laugh fiercely. And don't forget that hard times are temporary. They're not forever. They will pass. Love you, Audrey.